Hello. Well, it's been about a year since I made a video, so yeah, that reminds me. I'll have to remember not to speak too loudly because the way I shoot these things, the microphone for the camera is right close to, to my face, so I have to be careful about that. Anyway, I decided to do something for Halloween, and I finally finished this custom playset that I made called the Haunted Graveyard Playset. And I've actually done a video on this before. Actually, it was two videos, part one and part two, when I first started doing videos for this channel. And that was like 3 years ago. And they weren't very good because I hadn't covered any playsets. And I didn't cover the pieces and, go into detail about all that stuff and show the different angles of the setup and all. But I've done a few of those since then, and I'm hoping this will be a better presentation. And on top of that, I did an illustrated booklet that I'd been threatening to do. I'll be showing that at the end of the video. But I've been threatening to do this thing for a long time, and it was a lot of work, and it took forever to get around to it, and then a long time to do it. So let's proceed. First of all, we'll look at the box. And by the way, I did, you can blame me for everything about this. I drew it and created it and put it all together. I did everything but make the pieces. I just used playset pieces. I did make some of the pieces, the cutouts. Anyway, here's the box. Haunted Graveyard Playset. And the idea is that MPC and Marks, a couple of toy companies from back in the day, got together and made this. It was actually MPC, but they kind of conned somebody at Marks into getting to use their branding and some of the pieces that they had. And not all of these are Marks and MPC pieces. This is a what-if custom set. Here's this side panel. It tells some of the stuff that's in the set. This end panel kind of gives an idea, a broad look at the plot behind the set. Background. And the back, it's, like branding, hyperbole, partners in horror, and all that. And then the stars of this playset are the MPC monsters, the 8 weird monsters, 2.5-inch figures that MPC did back in 1964, I think, is when they were most prominent. Although on the Haunted Hulk sale, it gives a date of 1963, and Haunted Hulks always came with 2 of them, so I guess they were, making them as early as 63. And I bought all of mine in, like in the mid-60s, 64 on, when I was a little kid, so. Anyway, that's a look at the box, and it's just a regular playset type box, And I put this together and drew it back in 2013, and that's actually where I signed the box lid up there. But that's a pretty good look at the box. Now we'll look at the pieces. Okay, well, here is most of the pieces out on the table. And rather than have to pick up all of this stuff, I'm going to be moving the camera around when I spotlight different ones, but I will pick up some of the more important pieces and try to show them up close. This terrain section here is made by Marks. It was sold in prehistoric play sets as well as others back in the day. And they're decorated a little bit for this horror play set. There's some bats from a Haunted Hulk sticker for the cave and a spider. This cave, in the context of the storyline for this play set, is one of the main entrances to the underground. And I still have to show that, those tunnel sections and all that. Here's the rock arch, and if you're not familiar with this, you'll see how it goes together when it's all set up. Here is what's normally a lake, but it's full of green goo because there's a slime demon that lives in there. You can see the blood where somebody was trying to hold on to the side of the rock as the slime demon was dragging them down. And I even got the clips. These little clips are pretty hard to find these days. I never used them when I was a kid playing with these things, but you know, Mark's always put them in their playset. They came on a little tree, or sprue as collectors call it. You got 4, but there's 2 here. That's all you needed at a time if you want to clip those things together. And here is a demonic tree, and there's kind of a story behind that too. There's a story behind a lot of this stuff, and it's going to be a long video. Okay, rock fence sections. There's 8 of those. Those are what remains of a temple to a dark god. That's kind of another star of the background for this playset, called Agrazel. And he's the dark god that the witch, Hagmar, worships, or I shouldn't say he, it's an it. And it empowered her to come back from death to seek revenge and serve it. Okay, there's a ruined building. These are the parts to it. They're decorated as well. This thing's kind of warped. It holds together, but it's kind of warped when you get it set up, which is fine because it's supposed to be a ruin anyway. And this is the half roof that goes on it. And here's the second floor that goes in there. Here is the cemetery fence. Here's the gate section, and that has a Haunted Hulk sticker on there. The idea was that originally said Hillcrest because the name of this area is Hillcrest Cemetery, and for years it was just reputed to be haunted. I mean, it really was. It was cursed. But, you know, teenagers would come out and drink and, you know, do stupid stuff like teenagers do. And they spray painted haunted over the Hillcrest. And, of course, that opens up and all. And there's the cemetery fence sections. You can make a pretty good sized cemetery with this. And let's see what we got here. 3, 6, 9 sections. And you'll see that set up later. Some dead trees. Got to have dead trees for a monster area. And those are Mark's dead tree repops. Stumps. These are some of the cutouts. I've got a whole big thing of cutouts I'll show. But these are 10 of these black circles that signify a change in the levels for the underground. They can signify either a shaft, which could have ladder rungs going up and down, or a pit, or a circular staircase. And here's some other cutout sections. Here's a summoning pentagram. and 3 coffins for the vampires, and a rack. Now this would be considered like a prototype in the context that this was supposedly made and sold, and then, well, not many of them got sold, but in 1969 was when this was supposed to have come out. So this would be kind of like a prototype for that, if you wanted to look at it that way. And these would actually be in plastic once the thing was finished. And then you got some little things here for the lake area, for the seaside grotto. There's a little rowboat and some containers for supplies and stuff. Here is a bookcase with all kind of magical reference material for the witch. This is a table with that big book on it, is the Maleficus Infinium, which is a grimoire, which, you know, it's sanity altering, and it's Lovecraftian, and that is a big spell book that Hagmar uses to cast really powerful spells. And she's already corrupted. I mean, it corrupts if you use it, but she's demonic anyway. And this is her alchemy table. She does sorcery and alchemy. And this is just, you know, like a bookcase or a storage case and container. And here's some gold. Hey, you know, sometimes they have to buy stuff, even if they are monsters, I guess. And here is a cooking pot. A lot of this stuff is HeroQuest, pieces from HeroQuest. And some of it could be used, because it was so big in HeroQuest, it could be used for this 2-inch scale instead of the 1-inch for HeroQuest. Here's a couple of tables. I couldn't use the chair that came in HeroQuest because it was just too little. But I found this. That's a chair that Hagmar, the witch, uses. Here is an armory rack. And take a look at this. There are a bunch of tombstones. I think there's like 19 of those in all. Oh no, 20. 6, 10, 14, yeah, 20 of those. And these types here are made of polystone, I think. And of course you got some plastic ones here too. I just put in, you know, what I could find. This thing, I went a little crazy on it. It's one reason why it's going to take so long to present this. Here's a couple of plastic coffins. And now these two are MPC, they're called chronosaurs. They don't actually look like a chronosaurus did in prehistoric times, but they look like a plesiosaur, which is standard for sea monsters. So those two guard the lake for the seaside grotto. Here are the knights. There's a bunch. I think there's like 18 of those. Let's see, 4, 8, 10, 14, 16. Yeah, there's 18 of those, and horses. Now those are undead. They're called the Fist of Satan, and they're shadow knights, and they were summoned by Hagmar to, you know, join her ranks of evil. These are soldiers from 1969. They're actually Army Rangers. They have M16s and good equipment. And they'll be going in to try to rescue the hostages. They've got an uphill battle even for Army Rangers, which are tough as hell, but they're going to be fighting things they can't really affect very well. They can blow zombies apart and stuff like that, but you know, some of this stuff is bad news for a soldier. These are, well, the equivalent of prehistoric armadillos. They are the Glyptodont figure made by MPC for their dinosaur sets. And these are giant horned rats, prehistoric rats. And of course you got dire wolves. Now, these were created by Hagmar. This mainly is something for fun for her, I guess. But they were devolved to their prehistoric forms using alchemical formula and sorcery. And here's some trees that haven't died yet. Mark's trees. And oh yeah, big spiders. These big spiders are kind of cool. I mean, they're not giant spiders, they're just really big. And I think there's like a dozen of those. These guys over here are zombies. There are 30 of them. And there are, I think, 6 poses. And a guy, I think he's losing his insides there. But, you know, some of this stuff is kind of cartoony. Speaking of cartoony, here's a football player zombie. But, you know, it's in keeping with the Monster Kid vibe of the 60s, with the puns and the Jack Davis artwork and stuff like that. These darker green figures here, which don't really show up, I guess, as darker green too much on the camera. But they are ghouls. Here's one chewing on an arm. And there are 10 of the ghouls. Like I said, 30 zombies. Here are some skeletons that were raised. They have weapons. Looks like there are 2 of each pose. 6 different poses, so there's a dozen skeletons. And here are the Unholy 8, which are really the stars of the set. The set was kind of built around them. This is the Executioner. These are MPC Weird Monsters from 1964. Here's Wolfman. Looks like a classic werewolf, but MPC called him Wolfman on the Pop-Top packages, so that's what I'm calling him. These aren't Pop-Tops, they're Weird Monsters. Pop-Tops are like 5 inches tall. And here is the witch. She's like the one that is the leader of the evil horde. Her name's Hagmar now. And she's really powerful. She's a demon, and she's got magic spells and stuff. This is the most powerful figure in the background for the set. It's called the Creature of Doom. And usually doesn't even enter combat. It's there to make sure that she honors her pact with the dark gods. But when it does, it's almost unbeatable. Here is the Mummy. And he's got a special background. He's possessed and controlled by a demon named Sakarkas, a snake demon. And this is the monster. That's MPC's version of the Frankenstein monster, or flesh golem. And he was created by Hagmar using sorcery and things. He's loyal to her totally. Here is a couple of demons who don't tell their real name. They just go by Skeleton and Devil Bat. And this is an ancient vampire. He's like 800 years old as a vampire. His name is Count Valagast. And that's the... he looks like the Phantom of the Opera a lot, but he's the NPC vampire. And of course, here are the figures for the victims. There are 3 victims that are going to be sacrificed to the Dark God. And that's why the soldiers and these guys are going in, but I'll get to that in a minute. These figures here are Mark's Bathing Beauties. They're a little bit too tall for this scale, but they're the best things I could find to stand for the victims in the playset. You know, they're kind of hot and kind of inappropriate, and that's one thing that got this set shelf so quickly is kind of inappropriate for kids. And these 5 figures here are called the Paladin Force. They're monster hunters. And they pack high-tech weaponry, big guns, and also use certain methods of fighting that are effective against supernatural opponents, like blessed silver-tipped rounds and sunlight grenades, like grenades that emit UV light for several seconds after you throw them. A lot of silver, a lot of light, a lot of holy this and holy that, you know. And these guys are augmented too physically. They're kind of like super soldiers. And each one has his own name, and I'll get to that later. Okay, I think that about covers the main pieces. Okay, now we go to the cutout sections, which you use for the underground. This is a significant section here. It stands for the Seaside Grotto. It's full of water, so it's like a little lake down there. And you just run a tunnel up to this. The silver or gray or whatever stands for, you know, the tunnel or the ground. And the way you fix these, you just overlap them and put them underneath, and you know, then that runs into there, and you've got a tunnel going into the Seaside Grotto. There's a cave entrance over here somewhere, and a lot of this is just in the kid's mind that is playing with the set, or the grown-up that's setting it up, or whatever, you know. I mean, it's a play set. It's not a tactical war game or anything like that. It's just a play set. You can use tabletop rules to game it out if you wanted to. But first and foremost, it's just a play set, just to have fun with. It's the play set that we never got when I was a kid, and I really wanted one really badly, a monster play set. And here's some more water sections, like ponds and stuff, that you can put in chambers in the underground. Here are different sized chambers, and you can overlap these to make a larger chamber if you want to. And different sizes. Here's a really big one, you know, whatever. And then the tunnels are here, and there are several of those of different sizes, and you can angle them to make like a bend in the tunnel, or you can do a stark angle, like make a right angle if you wanted to, whatever, you know. It can be set up in an unlimited amount of different configurations. Now, I don't know how many of these there are, probably a dozen or so. I just cut them out of cardboard, you know, like poster board. And this color works extremely well. At first I was trying to like draw walls and stuff. That just didn't work because it didn't line up right when you set them up in different ways. I wanted something you could set up in whatever way you wanted to. And this doesn't look too bad once you get it down. You'll see it later in the video when I set it all up. But there's the cutout sections. Oh, I did want to mention one thing. I lost my train of thought there for a second. We didn't get the classic monster playset like the Marx style and MPC style playsets. In 1980 or 81, I think, we got the Dragon Crest playset from Miner, which is really MPC. And it had the MPC monsters in it in glow-in-the-dark color. And it was a pretty cool little set. It had a little NPC, like a castle and a cardboard hill with a dungeon and a really cheesy dragon figure and stuff like that. But that wasn't classic monsters. That was Dungeons and Dragons. We never really got a classic monsters themed, you know, like a gothic horror classic monsters themed playset. So that's why I went ahead and made this. And now the laborious task of setting it all up. Okay, got it set up for the surface anyway. Kind of get a wider look at it here. Alright, tell you what, do the old fly around and I'll try to explain things as I go. Do the bat's eye view. There is 2 squads of Army Rangers trying to deal with monsters on the surface. Bunch of undead. There is Skeleton and Devil Bat, which are demonic things. They just call themselves that because if they use their demonic names, they run risk of being controlled by somebody. And some of the Shadow Knights are up here. The Fist of Satan. That's what they call themselves. And there is the old ruined building with a ghoul up there in the window. And I mean, it's kind of warped and rickety, but it's a ruined building, so I guess it's okay. And the Wolfman, or El Hombre Lobo, is sneaking around by a tree, which is what wolfmen tend to do, it seems like. And he's probably going to try to get a sneak attack on some of these soldiers over here. And there's the cool graveyard with all the ghouls and zombies in there. The graveyard is full of tunnels underneath the tombstones. I don't have counters for them or anything. They're just ghoul tunnels. And the ghouls are always looking for morsels, you know, to feast on. They've about exhausted the supply here, but there's some of those tunnels that actually lead down to the underground. But the main entrance to the underground is that cave right there. And Count Balagast, the vampire lord, is over there. He's got a group of dire wolves. He can control the dire wolves and the giant horned rats, even though they're the prehistoric versions of rats and wolves, thanks to Hagmar. He can still control those with his vampiric powers. And also he's a necromancer, so he can also control the undead if he wanted to. And there's the creature of doom. That thing's not even entering the fight. I mean, it doesn't have to. The soldiers will probably be overwhelmed by the secondary stuff and the Shadow Knights. And also there's 3 other members of the Unholy Eight up here. And 1 or 2 of them alone would be a match for the Army Rangers. But, hey, sometimes brave soldiers can pull things out, so who knows? It's up to the kid playing with it, or the person using tabletop rules and running it like a game. There's the demonic tree, and that's actually the tree that Hagmar, or her name was Hagmarian Thorn, and she was hanged on that in 1692. When she came back from death in demonic form, she put a curse on it and bound a demon into it. That's the reason it looks like that. It can look like a regular dead tree, but when the demon exerts its power, it has a demonic cast to the whole tree, and it can control snakes. So there's a giant snake there. There's the slime demon, and I've already explained about that briefly. And spiders everywhere. There's a couple of Fist of Satan knights on their undead shadow steeds. The rock walls around the cemetery are what's left of the Temple of Agrazel from prehistoric times. This whole area has been cursed for, thousands of years. And that's the reason when this building was first built here as a church to try to sanctify the area, they built the graveyard and this building a few decades ago. And it just fizzled out. I mean, the curse was so bad, it was just a haunted place then. But a few years ago, when Hagmar showed up with her monsters, actually more like a few months ago, this place not only was just a haunted area, and cursed. It was overrun with actual monsters. And there's some of the Hagmar's creations, the prehistoric monster animals that she devolved with her alchemy. And that's pretty much it for up here. It's just, an ongoing battle. A lot of little stories within a big story. And that pretty much covers that. And now I will attempt to set up the underground. Okay, this is the first setup of part of the underground tunnels. And I'm going to take the camera off and zoom around a little bit. But, alright, so here, this black circle, I'm just using that for a pit in this case. You just make it up as you go. It just signifies a change in level, basically. Here's a pool of water in this chamber. This is like the torture chamber, and also the armory. There's some weapons over there on that rack. Here is one of the victims chained to the wall. You can assume that walls are at the edge of, all the cutouts. I mean, that was the best way to do it, in my estimation, because you can set it up however you want to that way. And there's probably torches on the walls and stuff. This girl is in the rack, and the executioner is enjoying himself torturing her and tormenting her, probably. And here are some of the skeletons that were raised as guards. And here's the monster hunters, the paladin force. Here's the other squad of army rangers, and they followed the paladin force down to back them up. The paladin force are the real adversaries here. They've got the stuff for the undead and counter some of that supernatural awfulness. And there's the mummy back there moving up. There's another black circle there. That's probably a shaft that goes down to another level that goes out to the seaside grotto after it goes through several, sections of tunnel. The idea is this is on a cliffside. The Hillcrest Cemetery is at the surface. That was the first setup I did. And then you get down into the tunnels, and it's different levels that go all the way down, and there is a cliff on one side that goes down to the seaside grotto, and eventually the tunnels all filter down there. So here is Hagmar's magic lab, and there she is hovering over her treasured grimoire, the Maleficus Infinium, that was, nobody knows who wrote it, but it was inspired by the dark god Agrizel, according to legend. I had to interject some Lovecraftian stuff into it. Couldn't resist. And here are more of the Fist of Satan, the Knights. There's a summoning pentagram. Here's a cooking pot, or whatever that Hagmar uses to either cook on or make potions or whatever. Here's an alchemy table. A chest with gold. There's a trap door going down to a little storage section that she uses. Here's one of the victims that's chained to the wall. And they're tormenting these girls up until time to sacrifice them. It like primes them for the sacrifice to scare the hell out of them, and scar them emotionally. It's horror. There's the bookcase with the magic library in it, and there's a cabinet with different things in it. Who knows what? Something awful, no doubt. A couple more skeletons coming up. And this tunnel here, who knows where that goes? You just make that stuff up as you go. But this drop off here, this black circle, probably denotes a big circular staircase that in stone that goes down several dozen feet to this level from that cave up there. And then that tunnel over there that goes down that shaft probably goes to either another tunnel section on the way, or eventually it ends up in the seaside grotto, the big cave with the lake in it. So that pretty much covers that. Of course, you know, the battle is just getting ready to get started. A lot of those shadow knights are going to go down to the paladin force, because their paladin force are really powerful. They're like super soldiers with advanced weaponry. There's 5 of them, but they're up against some stiff opposition here. When the executioner finally decides to quit playing with his victim, he can enter the fray and use some of his powers. And of course, the skeletons, they'll go down pretty quick. That mummy there's powerful too. It's got an aura around it. Well, I'll explain all that later when I show you the illustrated booklet. And Hagmar herself is extremely powerful. Besides the creature of doom, she's probably the most powerful of the unholy 8. So there we go. That's that level of underground. And I will set up the other level now. Okay, this is the last setup that I'm going to do. This is the seaside grotto set up in the underground. Here's the vampire lair. And there's some of the monster animals down there. Some big spiders and stuff, a couple of skeleton guards, a little pool of water in here. But when the vampire turns his victims into brides or whatever, he sticks them down here, you know. And it's usually hot girls, you know, why not? And there are some containers for supplies and stuff and a little rowboat. Now, this Haunted Hulk is like a supplementary piece that would have been remarketed in 1969. The original Haunted Hulk had a price of $2.98 and came in a really cool looking big box with cellophane on it. And it only came with 2 of the monsters. So I figured with their marketing plans for this playset, they would have re-released that. And another ship too called the Ghost Galleon, which is a custom Haunted Hulk that I made, but I'm putting it in here because I can. But anyway, those 2 ships are supplemental toys that a kid could buy to go with the Haunted Graveyard playset. And basically, they would come with all the monsters, all 8 of the monsters. And I figure that by '69, they would probably have a suggested retail price of maybe $4.98 instead of $2.98 in '64. Of course, you get all 8 of the MPC weird monsters in there. It'd be the Unholy 8 is the way it would be, you know, marketed. But this setup is really sparse compared to the others. But, you know, it's what we're left with. And, you know, a kid could set up any number of other underground sections of any size. I mean, a kid could set up a whole room full of tunnels and chambers and pretend this stuff is anything, you know. Just depends on how far they want to go with it. And this here, I didn't put a black circle for this, even though this is the level of the sea, the ground at the foot of the cliff. I figure this is a long slant. This section of tunnel here, it goes up like that and around. It's a long slanted circular sort of thing. And it would, you just pretend that it slants. Of course, you could put a black circle there and say it's a shaft or whatever, you know. And I never made up exactly how tall the cliff is. It could be 100 feet. It could be 200 feet. Who knows? I mean, it could be anything. It's up to the kid playing with it or the adult gamer that's using tabletop rules. There's a better look at the Haunted Hulk. Those are hard to get these days and pretty expensive when you ever find them. And let's look at that for a second. And here is the other ship that would be a supplemental piece to go with this, the Ghost Galleon. And it would be the same price. Of course, that would not be that spider there and that webbing would all be a big plastic piece. This is like a prototype. And it would look like that on the original Haunted Hulk. But anyway, the ships are things that Hagmar can summon. And they can go through time and dimensions and sail at unusual speed and all that. And since she can summon them, they could sail up on the Haunted Hulk up to the cave entrance, which, by the way, has a spell over it, a continual thick fog called a shroud spell. And it also cuts any kind of radio transmission. So if anybody was foolish enough to actually poke around in that fog and find the entrance, oh yeah, guess what they would see? Almost forgot these guys. The sea monsters, the plesiosaurs that live in there and guard the underground lake to the seaside grotto. And, you know, I mean, there's the skeletons, and they could probably take care of whatever stupid normal were to wander and stumble into the cave. But if they couldn't, there's a lot of other awful things in here that would. And there you go. That's pretty much the setup. Oh yeah, I was going to say they could sail up on one of those ships. The Unholy Eight could, or just Hagmar or whoever was with her for that trip, and just leave the ship out in the sea, out from that fog, that unnatural fog spell, and float in here with a levitation spell or whatever, because she has all sorts of spells. Just flying is nothing to her. And once she got inside the thing, she could summon the ship again, and it would disappear from outside and appear on the inside in this interior lake. So it's not like they would have to leave the thing outside to be seen by aircraft or other passing ships or whatever. But anyway, yeah, no, I spent way too much time figuring all this out. It comes from a lot of reading horror and monster comics and watching monster movies, and it's what happens to you, man. You get warped, but it's a good kind of warp. It's fun. So now I'm going to show the illustrated booklet that I drew to pull all this together. Okay, illustrated booklet. This is like a comic book. Now, this really should, if it was a professional job, it would be drawn on artboard, and all the graphite would have been erased after he inked it and all that. But I just did it for fun, and I wanted to be able to include it into, the box with the rest of the stuff. So I just, I drew the original art on copy paper, and I didn't want to grind on that with an eraser, so there's a little bit of graphite here and there, but it's not very noticeable. Like I said, this is just for fun. Now here's the cover. There's a little ghoul playing with his haunted graveyard playset in a graveyard. Maybe a haunted graveyard. He's holding the Creature of Doom figure there. Now, exposition, background. I'm not going to dwell too long on each page. You can, freeze the video or pause the video and read the text if you care to. And that just gives some background there. And now we can get into the Unholy Eight, 2 per page. Here's Hagmar the Witch. Gives more of her personal background and what she has planned and all that, and she's casting a spell in this illustration. So got the Doctor Strange hands there. And this bat, it's not really a bat, it's a manifestation of her clairsentient spell, but I'm not going to go into every detail like this. You can read the text if you want to. The Creature of Doom, the most powerful version of the Unholy Eight. And the Wolfman. Hombre Lobo. Monster. That's what MPC calls it in the pop-top packaging, so that's what I call it. It's really, you know, the flesh golem, Frankenstein monster, or whatever. And this particular one was made by Hagmar. She loves to experiment with nasty things. And there's the mummy. And he's pretty powerful too. Undead, possessed by a snake demon. And there is the vampire lord, Count Valgast. And you know, a lot of this stuff is corny tropes, but that's part of the charm of it to me. I mean, you got to have the tropes, man, or it's not good monster stuff. All of this was built on those ideas. Here are the other two members, Skeleton and Devil Bat. And of course, there are a lot of nods to monster movies and monster comics and things in here. Executioner. There are the two ships. Sold separately. Haunted Hulk and Ghost Galleon. And there's the Fist of Satan, the Shadow Knights. I thought about maybe making those sort of like the Blind Dead Templars from Tombs of the Blind Dead. But I wanted something different. Also, I wanted to take advantage of the way the figures look. You know, the Marks Knights all in black. So Shadow Knights fit perfect with it. They're still undead. Demonic Tree. Yeah, just wait till you get a good focus on the text, and you know, just pause the video and you can read that if you care. Slime Demon, the thing that lives in the pond. It's a green slime looking thing, and I just about basically colored the blue water green and put some detail in it. Undead Horde. Gotta have the undead, man. Skeletons, zombies, and ghouls. Big Bernie Wrightson fan. Heavily influenced by Wrightson. I'm certainly nowhere approaching his level, but you know, I love his work. And Animal Monsters, Dire Wolves, Monster Armadillo with spiked tail, and Horned Giant Gopher. Basically, I threw everything in there that I could think that might be appropriate. It's a huge thing. I don't know how many pieces that thing is, but it's huge. Paladin Force, there are the Monster Hunters. And notice the names. Some of my favorite comic book artists have those names. And Army Rangers. Yeah, the Army Rangers are really outgunned in this, but I thought it'd be cool. I found those figures for them, and I thought it'd be cool to use them. And a brave soldier can pull crazy things out sometimes. You never know. The victims, the sacrificial victims, captives, whatever. And their names are nods to some Euro horror actresses. Here is an explanation about the underground lair. Tells in detail. And there's a little illustration of Hagmar's lab. A lot of these illos that I did are simplistic. But I mean, I wanted it to have that style, you know, kind of a humorous style, kind of like the Jack Davis work. And there is Agrazel, the dark god, that is the power behind Hagmar, who is like the catalyst for all of this. And here is the back cover. It's a 16-page booklet that would be reduced to comic book size. And this is Black Magic Mark C. It's kind of a takeoff on Magic Mark C, the Mark's mascot they used for a while. And some hype and silliness. And here is, this is not part of the booklet, the comic book or whatever. This is an instruction sheet that I did. I drew all this up for the playset because they always included these instruction sheets in Marks and MPC playsets back in the 60s and, you know, into the 70s and all. So I did that in this style of those, with the little arrows pointing where to put things and all. And this, I was going to ink this too, but I just left it in pencil. Basically, it's just an explanation. Hopefully you can get a good place to freeze that, pause the video if you want to read that. It's about the marketing of the set and the craziness behind it. It was really made by MPC. And Lewis Marks had a fit when he found out about it. And it's, you know, it's like another story behind the playset. So there we go. That's it. Haunted Graveyard playset. And this video has run a crazy amount of time. So I'm out. Have a great Halloween. I'll probably be back sometime.